The Corvette performance lineup is split between two beasts: the high-revving, track-slaying Z06 and the electrified all-wheel drive Eray. Both are brutally fast. Both are mid-engine monsters. They are so similar, but they couldn't be more different. Which one is right for you? The screaming V8 or the stealthy hybrid? Let's break it down head to head. This isn't just a comparison, it's a clash of performance philosophy. You think the Corvette peaked with the C8 Z06? Think again. This is the 2024 C8 Eray, and it's not just fast, it's revolutionary. This is not your ordinary C8 Corvette, and there's some interesting things that make this car special. It's the first all-wheel drive Corvette ever. Thanks to its front-mounted electric motor, the Eray sends power to all four wheels, giving it unmatched traction in any weather conditions. It's a great all-weather car because of the all-wheel drive traction, but in the dry or on a track, that all-wheel drive just hooks. This car gets out of the hole fast. It's quicker than the Z06 to 60. The Eray rockets from 0 to 60 in just 2.5 seconds with an instant hit of all the electric torque from the electric motors up front. The LT2 6.2 liter V8 in the back gives you the combined horsepower rating of 655 horsepower, and it pulls to 6,500 RPM redline and has that amazing V8 Corvette sound that we all love. Yeah, it still sounds like a real Corvette, untouched. Chevy didn't sacrifice the soul of the Corvette for speed or for new technology in the hybrid performance. Now, to the Corvette purist, an all-wheel drive assisted in the front may not be what you would expect from Corvette itself, but this is the future. This is the way cars are going. Look at them big manufacturers, supercars, hypercars, Ferrari, Porsche, Mercedes, Koenigsegg, all these, they're going to the hybrid assisted motors to give them the best performance possible. Chevy didn't build this car for gas mileage or for efficiency. They built this as a performance platform, and now we're starting to see it trickle out as the Eray was a test mule for the ZR1X, likely the ZR1X Zora, likely a Grand Sport X, likely a Z06X coming, and who knows what the future holds in the C8 platform. That performance from the hybrid system does not come without cost. It's the heaviest C8 yet. It weighs just over 4,000 pounds, so it's no featherweight, but the instant torque and the all-wheel drive of the e-motor up front do help to make up for that, especially from a standstill or at launch. But when you're tracking this car, you're driving it aggressively, you will feel that extra weight. You know, in my opinion, it's probably the best all-around versatile Corvette ever. It's quick, it's fast. You could drive it in the snow. You could drive it, in silent mode that, you could turn on only the battery and drive out of your neighborhood early in the morning and your neighbors can't hear it. The C9 platform is coming before we know it, guys, and the C8 Eray was the beginning for many things that are to come. It's just a glimpse into Corvette's future. Hybrid tech today, maybe all electric tomorrow. I don't know. I know that Chevy has said and Roma has said that there is not any plans currently to take the Corvette all electric or put out an all electric Corvette, but he's not speaking for the C9, he says currently, so we don't know what's coming, but it is a glimpse into the future of what GM's doing. The Eray isn't just a hybrid Corvette. It's literally a performance game changer for the industry. Okay guys, so this is the C8 Eray. Okay, this is Chevy's first foray into a performance hybrid in the Corvette platform. And when it came out, in my opinion, it wasn't marketed very well. It was not set up to do, the product, or they weren't set up right to do the production to get it out. They failed on the launch miserably, in my opinion. But it's an amazing vehicle. You get 650 combined horsepower between the electric motor in the front and the LT2 in the back, and it absolutely moves. Now, is it a different experience than my Z06? Absolutely. I mean, whew, that's quick, guys. That is really, really quick. It's one of
of those things where my Z06 builds into the power and just keeps pulling, whereas this E-Ray is a punch in the gut and it just goes, right? No matter what speed you're at, normally, because I think the electric motor is still giving power over 100 miles an hour. So any real practical speed you guys are going to be driving this at on a daily basis, you're getting all 650 all-wheel drive horsepower, and it's instant torque. You know, the 6.2, the LT2 is torquey enough. There ain't nothing wrong with this car, guys. This car is as fast as my Z06 to a point, okay? And it's one of those things where it wasn't well received. It was one of the, you know, kind of the, you know, redheaded stepchilds in the Corvette world, where the people that were Corvette purists didn't really receive it that well. But after driving multiples on track, after driving Nates before, after being in here in Nates today, I have to say, guys, that I would own the E-Ray. I would drive the E-Ray every day. I would track the E-Ray. Now, the experience for me is a little bit different because I'm used to the LT6, just that glorious screaming noise. It just pulls forever. You know, this car redlines at like 6,500, okay? So yes, you get all the power and more. You got a great throaty V8 in the back, but the difference in the experience for me will always be the Z06 is the better experience car. It's more visceral, it's more exotic. The sound never gets old. It's absolutely symphonic when you have that thing and you're just winding it and making it scream, okay? And that's the difference in the experience. You've got one that you could, you know, this is probably the best GT Corvette, the Grand Touring Corvette that they've ever made. Okay, now my Z06 currently, you know, the ZR1's just come out, but my Z06 is probably the best track Corvette that they've ever made. But this is by far, if I was going to go on a cross-country trip, daily drive with a C8, the E-Ray's where it's at, man. And you can mod these things. You know, Steven has over, you know, I think it's almost 1,100 horsepower to the tires because he has twin turbos on his E-Ray. And, you know, you basically got a ZR1 with, you know, the all-wheel drive motor, ZR1X. If you build these things, now the sound isn't the same, obviously, but the experience is still good. It's different, but it's good. All right, so Chevy makes the Z06 high revving, flat plane crank V8, right? Exotic, supercar killer. You know, people want to call it the poor man's Ferrari. But all in all, from a daily driver standpoint, Chevy killed the E-Ray on this. It is one of the best cars I've ever driven. I would say if I'm going to get in something and drive it all day long, drive it back and forth to work, you know, just kind of tour around, take a road trip with, I actually would probably prefer the E-Ray. I know I'm going to get some hate over that, but I'm going to tell you guys, it is that good of a car that you can just sit back, relax, and when you need the power, it's all there all at once. Now, it doesn't give you that spiny, tingly like that LT6 does, but it's fast enough it'll make the hair on the back of your neck stand up, guys. Many of you have not driven a car this fast, I promise you. The E-Rays also came standard with carbon ceramic brakes, guys, and these things stop like you would not believe. You know, the negative G meter on here, I've pulled, you know, 2 negative G's and I'm not really slamming on the brakes that hard. Also, you'll be hard pressed to fade these brakes. You can go on them and on them and on them, and these carbon ceramic brakes will not fade. We ran them at Ron Fellows at 103 degrees heat, and they did not fade all day long, and we beat the slop out of them. So, what an amazing car the E-Ray is. It's sad that they didn't get the production numbers that they really, I think, initially wanted. I do think they're going to be something in the future that if you do have a low mile, you know, E-Ray where you've got a good spec on it, that it's probably going to hold its value for quite some time. You know, they're cranking out Z06s, and you can see already that the value is starting to come down as far as the resale value or the trade-in value or what you get. So, you know, I really think the E-Ray is going to be a special car. When we look back in 10, 15, 20 years as the first performance hybrid, you know, you see what Chevy's already done with the ZR1X. This is where it all began, guys. This is going to be a special car. It already is. I love driving this car. I love that sound of the throaty American V8, and that instant torque of that E-motor is something you cannot ignore. So that's going to be it for right now. I'm going to get back, you know, get the car parked, you know, give it back to Nate, give you my final impressions. But, you know, the E-Ray itself is probably the best best non-Z06 car that they have made to date. You know, the 2019 ZR1 was such limited production that you can't really put that in there. You know, the C6 ZR1 is the absolute monster. It's the Blue Devil, you know, per GM. But the E-Ray itself, guys, is a car you can get in, get, you know, almost 30 miles to the gallon. You can put it in electric mode and drive out of your neighborhood in the morning, completely silent, and then kick it on when you get out. It's got a lot of cool features, and it's a great car. If you are sleeping, you guys do, honestly, you don't understand, go rent one. Go find somebody that has one. Go buy one. Go test one at a dealer. Test one at a dealership. Go to NCM Motorsports Park and rent one. You have to experience this if you haven't. It's just something that has to be experienced. The Z06 is kind of the same way in that you have to experience that supercar feel, but this is a whole different animal, and if you haven't, you really have to go experience this, guys. All right, the only other thing I'm going to say about the E-Ray is, you know, with the electric motor up front, you can feel the weight. You know, that's something you will feel when you're tossing the car around on these back roads. You will feel the weight, but the power delivery is so instant. The torque of the electric motor is so good that it's a non-issue at this point. It really, really is. So, but you know, if you drive one and you're used to a Z06 or a previous generation Corvette, you will feel the weight from the electric motor on the E-Ray. I have to say that.
This is my 2024 C8 Z06. The Z06 isn't just another Corvette. It's the most hardcore, high-revving, exotic, destroying American supercar ever built. But is it actually that good? In a word, absolutely. Let's start with the star of the show, the 5.5-liter flat plane crank V8 that cranks out 670 horsepower at 8,600 RPMs and makes a sound that'll make any Ferrari nervous. It doesn't growl like old school Vets, it screams like a race car. This engine isn't just loud, it's emotional. It's an actual experience. It makes the car come alive. 0 to 60 comes in 2.6 seconds, just 0.1 second behind the Corvette E-Ray that we reviewed earlier. The quarter mile, mid to low tens. It is track ready from the factory, and it's not just fast in a straight line. This thing dominates apexes. It's got grip, balance, and it inspires the ultimate confidence when you go to turn in or brake that you know this car is going to do what you're asking it to do. Not only does it respond, but it asks for more. The Z06 is dialed in. The steering feels razor sharp. You can throw it into a corner at speeds and it just sticks. The wider body, the improved aero, the mid-engine layout, the glorious sounds it makes. This car makes you feel like you're in a McLaren or an exotic rather than a Corvette. And that's the beauty, is that it's still a Corvette. It's affordable. It's comfortable. You've got heated and cooled seats to go with this insane performance. You've got great tech. You can take it on a road trip. You can cruise to work and then annihilate lap times after you clock out. It's the best of both worlds. It is definitely more of a track-focused machine, but can you daily drive a C8 Z06? Sure you can. It is meant for the track, but it's certainly capable of being daily driven. One of the most unbelievable parts of this car has to be the value. You get supercar performance, looks, styling, you get the sound, you get the flat plane crank V8 for well under 150,000 MSRP. Now you can get these cars spec'd out base level for 125, 130 MSRP, and nothing else comes close to this unless you add six figures and a European badge. So how good is the C8 Z06? In a word, it's exceptional. It's loud, it's raw, but yet it's still refined. It proves America can still build a world-class driver's car. If this is the future of Corvette, I am all in. The C8 Z06 will stand out as one of the most legendary cars that Corvette has ever made. Why? Because it brings us that flat plane crank V8, the most powerful, naturally aspirated V8 ever placed in a production car, and it still sits with the formula of a high-revving NA V8 for the Z06 badge. Now the ZR1 is out. The ZR1 makes 1,064 horsepower with a beefed up LT7 and twin turbos, but there's something so raw and visceral, and you feel so connected to the Z06 when you're in it, given all of the things it brings to the table, that it will go down and it will have its place in history This car brings the exotic look and performance into an affordable realm that most people can attain. You know, some people don't like the mid-engine design as far as the next direction for a Corvette. They don't like the angular body lines. I'm telling you though, guys, this car is reminiscent to me of the angular Lamborghinis and these cars that I had on my wall and posters when I was a child. The mid-engine design was obviously a gigantic step forward for Chevrolet Corvette as they moved the pendulum forward. GM engineers, Taj, many people had said they had taken the front engine platform with the C8 Eray, the C8 Eray, basically as far as you can take a front engine car. The majority of the world's supercars that have been produced before this have been mid-engine, and they've been mid-engine for a reason, because the physics just works better. Would I like to have had a little bit lighter curb weight on this car to just kind of wring a little bit more performance out of that car and get a little bit better power to weight ratio? Absolutely, but there's nothing wrong with this car in its current form. It is absolutely fantastic.
So here we are in the C8 Z06. Now I've done plenty of content on my channel about this car, about how amazing this car is, about what this car brings to the table. Comparing it to the E-Ray, obviously the first thing that stands out is the LT6. The sound that this car makes, that is true supercar exotic sounds. The performance level, the difference is not as much as people think it is between this car and the E-Ray. From a around town acceleration standpoint, the E-Ray, you know, gives it to you down low, instant torque, whereas the LT6 keeps building in the Z06 until we get to our glorious 8,600 RPM red line. Now, my car is a little bit more rowdy, a little bit more obnoxious, you could say, than Nate's E-Ray, whereas when you're cruising in my car, I still do have some engine noise, a little bit more road noise, but that's partly my wheels. You know, I do still have the PS4s on there though, but you know, it's a little bit more rowdy as far as the car goes. The other thing that was completely apparent after running these cars today is the extra cooling and the extra cooling capacity on the Z06, where, you know, we gave these some pretty hard runs today, and, you know, shut them down, whatever, and the fans and the cooling on the Z06 ran for, you know, another 10 minutes cooling the car down and keeping it cool. So this car was designed around a track, you know, purpose, you know, one weapon to be on the track to just tear up racetracks and apexes, cooling, you know, the extra, you know, handling, the extra braking. But with the carbon ceramic brakes, the braking on the E-Ray is no joke, and there really isn't a huge difference in the actual acceleration up to a certain point at speed, where the Z06 just continues to flourish, continues to pick up more speed and keep pulling up to that ridiculous red line. I would not trade my Z06 in for an E-Ray, but I would love to have an E-Ray. You know, the Z06, you know, GM made it very specific that this LT6 was going to be something special, and it was going to be bespoke to the Z06, which they did, because now they have the ZR1 and it has the LT7, which is a beefed up LT6 with twin turbos on it. But in my opinion, this car, the C8 Z06, with this engine, the LT6, you know, flat plane crank, high revving, naturally aspirated, open up the exhaust a little bit, and it makes these, you know, amazing sounds. Right? It's going to go down in history as one of the best motors GM ever built, and it's going to be an absolute legend down the line. Now, this kind of reminds me of all the generations before, right? Like we had the C6, the Z06, you know, the LT7 or the LS7, and then the ZR1 had the LS9, so a supercharged LS platform. Whereas now we had, then in 2019, right, we had the LT4 and the, you know, Z06 supercharged, whatever, and then we had a beefier version of that with a bigger supercharger and the ZR1, the LT9, and then now we have the same thing. We have LT6 and an LT7, so it's kind of following along with GM's formula. But aside from the C7 Z06 that had the supercharger on the LT4, the C8 Z06 sticks to that recipe that's always made the Z06 something special in my book, that it's a naturally aspirated, high revving This one just happens to be flat plane crank, which makes it sound even better, but it sticks to the same recipe. And I think that's going to go down a special place in history, where the ZR1s are the kings, they're the top dogs, but the cars that are really that driver experience that everybody wants are the Z06. And I think the C8 is no exception there. All right, and everybody, when this car came out, the C8 Z06, supercar, and it is. Just because it's made, by GM and made by some rednecks in Kentucky, got to give my shout out to my engine builder Shane Parker, does not mean this is not a supercar. All the engineering that went into this, and the way GM was able to bring this car to market with this level of performance at this price point, absolutely unbelievable, which I think will also go into making this car a much more respected car down the line as far as what GM was able to do and bring forth, right? I mean, I was about 125, give or take, out the door on this car. I couldn't get a Z07 package. That was really the only one option that I really wanted. Now, there are others now that I've driven other Z06s that I would do if I had to do it all over again, but $125,000 or $135,000 spec'd out pretty nicely. You could get them, you could spec them out really expensive. But when you're talking about the base pricing, and just doing minimal options, you still get the performance level. Price for or performance for price, you cannot beat the C8 Z06. I mean, even when you look at where the C6 Z06 was $100,000, the C7 Z06 was over $100,000. You're only at basically 125 when these things first came out, and you're getting performance where you could take out Ferraris, Lambos, M cars. You could really take out some big name cars. I mean, on this channel, for even sure, like I took down a Porsche Taycan Turbo S in my car, the older version, not the brand new Turbo S, but still, I mean, for 125 grand, the cars that this thing is taking down is unbelievable. So the engineering, the performance, and everything that GM brought to market for the price point they brought it at is absolutely unheard of, and we may not see that again. The ZR1 is priced to the moon right now, but it's still an absolute bargain when you consider what you're getting. 220,000 MSRP. You're going to be spec'd out pretty decent. You're going to have an absolute world beater as far as the car industry goes. Nobody's doing that right now. But price for performance, what you got, what's coming out. The C8 Z06 kind of stands in a category all by itself, and that's another thing that makes this car very special for me. All right, YouTube, well, I'm back at the house. Had a great day today. I got to review both the C8 Eray and the C8 Z06. Tell me below in the comments, which ones are you guys choosing? Which one would you like? If you haven't gotten to experience an Eray yet, it's something you really do need to experience. The Z06 is the same thing, but people just kind of sleep on the Eray, and it's really a magnificent car. GM did a great job. If you haven't already, guys, help us out here. Help us keep growing this channel, bringing you good content. Like, share, and subscribe. And everything you do, be legendary, because legends never die.